Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to what am I talking about? Welcome back to what's on the playlist today. Whew. My brain is frying as I speak. Anyway, today I want to talk about Alanis Morissette's "Jagged Little Pill," an image of which you will see here. "Jagged Little Pill" is Alanis Morissette's third album. Her first two albums were more dance pop style music, the kind of music people expected teenage girls to write and perform and sing. When she had completed those first two albums, basically her recording contract was up. She was looking for some other place to do music, another outlet for her music. And she was introduced to a guy named Glenn Ballard, who was impressed with her. Like, wow, you're only 19 years old. You have this amazing voice, and you've written all this music. So they kind of partnered up. At the time, she was still living with her parents in Ottawa, Canada. So she decided to move to Los Angeles. I think it was Los Angeles, somewhere in California. She had to move to California to work on becoming a more serious artist. And her partnership with Ballard allowed her to write songs that were more personal, more about raw emotion. And yeah, this album, Jagged Little Pill, is definitely a switch from the dance pop of her previous two albums. This is much more ragged, much more raw, much more grungy, although not necessarily grunge music. But yeah, it's much grittier in its tone and style. They when they were working on recording, Ballard helped worked. The two of them co-wrote all the songs on the album. They committed to trying to work on one song a day and trying to get it down when they recorded it into like one or two takes, and then they would do more work in post-production. But all the lyrics on all the vocal tracks on the album are taken from those original demo recordings. The one or two takes that they did to get the basic song down, they didn't really go back and retool them too much. So pretty impressive to me that they managed to nail this down in a couple, the basic recording tracks in a couple of weeks. They recorded them in Ballard's home studio, and basically just cleaned them up, like I said, in post-production to try and clean up the sound a bit. So that's interesting too. This album was released in 1995, and her first couple albums weren't like hugely successful. Her second album was kind of a flop. Jagged Little Pill was kind of designed to justify getting a longer record contract. And it was supposed to do well enough to justify continuing her musical career, continuing to get her musical contracts, and to make a fourth album. And it exploded and rocketed onto the charts. I think it was "You Ought to Know" that really blew up the album. Yeah, it shot to number one and stayed there for like 5 weeks. The album itself stayed on the number one on the charts for like 12 weeks. It was nominated for, I think, 9 Grammys and won 5 of them, including Album of the Year. Making Alanis Morissette was 19, making her the youngest artist to win a Grammy at that time. So yeah, this album just kind of blew up very unexpectedly and rocketed Alanis Morissette to fame. A lot of these songs are like I said, as a departure from previous recordings. These songs are very personal to Alanis Morissette. "You Ought to Know" is famous for it's more of an aggressive, about a past relationship, about an ex-boyfriend. What was that one? I know that it was mentioned around the time they were recording "You Learn." I think it was "You Learn." Alanis Morissette was actually mugged by a man with a gun on the street, which actually put her in the hospital, but not for injuries. She just went into anxiety. because of it. 19-year-old being mugged for the first time by a man with a gun on the streets of Los Angeles. It was a very traumatic experience for her. One little tidbit that I found, the song, where'd it go? Head Over Feet. The song is generally about, being in love with a close friend. Not necessarily like in love, but, a very close, loving friend. It is the first instance where the term friends with benefits appears like in print or in recording anywhere. So the term may have existed before that, but this is the first official appearance. The song Head Over Feet is the first official appearance of the term friends with benefits, and as near as I can determine, it's sort of where the term originates from. The lyric is, you're a great, you're a best friend, a friend with benefits. So it is suggested in the song that, someone you are very, very close friends with, who you also are is an occasional lover. And Alanis Morissette did talk somewhat about the song is somewhat sexual in nature. Some of the songs are. And she did talk about, she was raised deeply Catholic, and she was always told that, if you're not a virgin, you're going to hell. So this album was somewhat of an exploration of her for her own sexuality, which she received a fair amount of criticism for, which I, don't agree with. I've always had that, I've always hated that dichotomy, that shame surrounding people's sexuality, that they need to keep everything bottled up. And I don't like the policing of other people's sexuality. Never have, regardless of where that originates from. But this is actually the only album of hers that I own, despite the fact that I liked some of her follow-up work. I just never got around to buying any of it. This album was not just a smash hit, but it was, compared to Carole King's Tapestry, in the impact that it had on women in music. So I'm not sure if it deserves that title, but who am I to judge? I'm not saying it doesn't. I don't hear, but I'm also not like plugged into the music industry as much as other people are. I don't hear a lot of people saying that Alanis Morissette inspired her to become an artist the same way that people did with Carole King. Although I do know people of my generation is saying a bit much, because I am old enough that I kind of grew up on Carole King. So I'm in that gray area between. Anywho, I do think this is a very good album. In spite of the fact that I only have this one of Alanis Morissette's, I really should go out and get more. But I'm also at the point where it's like, man, I have so much damn music already, and I don't listen to it enough as it is. So this is a great album. It's been considered a cultural milestone for female artists. And yeah, that's it. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.